The Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Mary, Queen Beauty of Carmel,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
I'd like to reflect on self-knowledge this afternoon. Tonight we begin to celebrate the solemnity of the Most Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It is the knowledge that God has of us that we are to see who we are. Socrates said, know thyself, but as Christians, as Catholics, we extend it to say to know ourselves as God sees us. We just don't leave it at knowing ourselves. It's to know ourselves as God knows us. It's to see ourselves as God sees us. And the goal, of course, is to be completely taken into God's vision, the beatific vision. And then a wonderful little phrase St. Teresa has in her Meditations on the Song of Songs, my favorite book of hers. Meditations on the Song of Songs. Kind of a preparation for the interior castle. The interior castle was set up by the way of perfection. So all three works are to be worked together in a way. One's like a prelude to the other, and the other one is the kind of like the model for the third one. But in the Song of Songs, there in chapter 6, number 4, she has this little story about being forgotten in the Lord. It means like, the intellect is quiet now, it's at peace, the memory is at peace, it's quiet. The will now is given over to the Lord Holy Spirit, who makes us more Christ-like by having us fall in love, the spirit of love having us fall into the spirit of love with God. Fall in love. That's what Teresa's wanting us to do, just fall in love with God. I kept trying to fall in love. Didn't work, that's why I'm religious. Didn't happen. Anyway, she says here, being forgotten in the Lord. But blessed sleep, happy inebriation, that makes the bridegroom supply for what the soul cannot do. That is set up so wonderful and order. The soul is made one in great purity with the very Lord of love, who is God. For no one hinders the soul at this moment in its strive for union with God. For no one hinders the soul, neither senses nor faculties, nor is the will aware of itself. In a way, that's the goal of self-knowledge, the virtue of self-knowledge. It is a virtue, it's to be practiced. It's to become so taken up in the Lord that in a way we're not even aware of ourselves, because we're so mesmerized by the beauty of the Lord, by His truth, as we are at one with Him, and realizing we realize that we have been made good out of the goodness of God. That's why we receive the Eucharist. Become good. Goodness. Christ-like. But in this, see, God sets in this, ourselves so wonderfully in order that we are made pure by the very love of God, who fashions us in a way that we don't even become aware of ourselves, except that we are loving Him. Really, in a way, that's how I see her understanding of the goal of self-knowledge. Kind of got to put all these things together about St. Teresa. And what does she really, what does she want from us? As we want God, it's really to be Christ-like. And Pope Benedict said we have to see as Christ sees. We have to think as Christ thinks. We have to feel, to emote the emotions as Christ does. Then we start to will, meaning put into action the very love of God. So the self-knowledge is really geared towards, one, seeing ourselves, being able to see, if we can, put ourselves in God's eyes, see ourselves who we are as He sees us, who He has made us to be. And secondly, to become so, she would say, inebriated in love, that we're not even aware of ourselves, except that we are loving God. Self-knowledge as a virtue is the one virtue that's consistently mentioned by spiritual, mystical writers. And they all are in agreement. It really is the foundational virtue. Teresa will say in the Interior Castle, first of all, we got to go into the room of self-knowledge, right there at the beginning. And so she's following in this tradition of the importance. It's crucial. Something crucial is a crisis, and a crisis is a crossroads. Maria. It's a crossroad. Because there's a judgment that has to be made. Which way are we going to go? Which way are we going? What path are we going to follow? So when there's crises in our life, we have to make a decision. Which way are we going to go? And so, self-knowledge is, am I going to be open to allow myself to see myself for who I truly am, and to see myself as God sees me? Did you ever see yourself but not think it was you? You know, you look in a window, or you come up a hallway and there's a mirror there, and you come around. Who was that? You don't know. You didn't know it was you. You looked in the window. You ever have that happen to you? Sometimes, some have. Yeah, it happened to me recently, and it did take not just a split second. It took several seconds for me to realize that was me. I was seated somewhere, and it was just the way the light was on the window and the angle and everything. And I was looking at, who's over there? Somebody was coming like through this doorway, And it was just, it was in profile, and I kept looking. I said, I thought I was the only one in this room alone, and then I realized it was me. It was a reflection of me, the light from behind, and then from whatever the source over in this room. I'm trying to think where it was. It might have been at the other Benedictine Abbey, which I mentioned this morning, Subiaco. I stopped in to visit there. I was all alone. I was like the Lord in the temple. No one was around. And I sat down to pray, and I don't know, just however it was, however the mechanics, the physics of it was. For a moment, I saw myself in profile. I didn't know it. And I've done this before too. I've caught myself, by surprise. You come up, turn into a room, and you don't know that there was a mirror there, like I said. And you see yourself. And it's kind of a startling thing, I have to say. Because we look at ourselves pretty much every day and say, yeah, that's what I look like. We're walking down the street and say, I wonder what I look like. I wonder how other people see me. Or I wonder how I look in this suit, or in this shirt, or in this blouse, or in this outfit, whatever, And but this seeing ourselves for who we are, kind of startling ourselves, is like when it comes to self-knowledge. Because we don't sometimes consider the way we really are. Maybe it's just too painful at times. Or it's the way of God protecting us from really getting too prideful and puffed up. But in the inner self, in our woundedness, in our brokenness, we do have to see ourselves for who we are. And that's why if you were in Houston, giving my favorite phrases of Teresa, that I mentioned that God's going to break our heart. He allows our heart to be broken so we can put it back together. Not just put it back together, but to really mend it, to draw us closer to Himself. And so seeing ourselves is like breaking our heart. And being in a place, part of the grace where I am now, due to the transfer, it's been a very painful experience, but it's been very healthy spiritually. So I'm very grateful. A lot of it's helping me to see really who I am in my attitudes, in my perceptions on things, and so on. And this is where the self-knowledge really has to be cultivated. It's not so much knowing what you like, what you dislike. I like this, I like that, and we say ourselves, I don't want to do this, I don't like doing that. It's those things, those are the crude things. But it's really getting into the interior and seeing who you are for all your strengths as well as your foibles or silliness, our moments of really being devious. And those are the moments that break us. They should break us. Because then I start to be the healthy person who God has made me to be, who I even desire to be. And that's the union of will right there. So Teresa said, like many of our writers, the foundation for any growth in sanctity, and holiness, and virtue, whatever it is, the growth has to be founded on self-knowledge. But as I say, self-knowledge that enables us to see ourselves as God sees us. So this virtue of self-knowledge is really the grounding foundational virtue for all the other virtues. And as soon as I say that, I have to say, well, but it's really humility, because I have to be humble to allow myself to see myself for who I am. And that's why Teresa, in her pyramid, she ends with humility, which is kind of like a pillar alongside of self-knowledge. We're made in the image and likeness of God. Then thankfully we are. This enables us then to see ourselves as who we are. But we've got to enter into this room, as she says, in order to seek God, to know God, and know who I am as a son, as a creature, as a daughter of God. Because there we will discover how much we desire God or not desire God. If we want to grow in prayer, then we've got to allow ourselves to grow in this virtue. Because in the way that you look at prayer, and of course she's always, prayer is what she's ultimately going to talk about. And all these other things are all related to prayer. And and Christ, his humanity, his divinity, etc. There's two real objects in Teresa's, all of her works that I see. You can put them all together and come up with your perspective or your answer. But for me, everything to her is geared towards prayer and towards Christ. And so she's saying if you want to be in union with God by means of prayer, that's what Carmelites do. Dominicans will find union with God through Holy Scripture. Benedictines will find union with God through the liturgy. The Franciscans and Augustinians will find it through community. Glad I didn't know enter that. Franciscans, will use the cross or poverty and so on. But see, that's all the beauty of God. We can find God in many different ways, union with Him. But for us, it's prayer. So we got to grow. If we want to become professional prayers, we got to grow in self-knowledge. If we want to be in union with God, we've got to exercise our prayer, but based upon this growing maturity, self-knowledge. Why? Because there's two purposes behind this. One, in prayer, God is going to reveal ourselves to ourselves. Because we'll shy away from it. Or we'll embrace it. We'll shy away from it because it can be very painful. And maybe sometimes it faults him to the, I'm not that way. Thank you, this and that. Or we may boast too much. I'm the one who did all this. I am this way. I'm skilled. I can do all this. So, but God's going to reveal ourselves to ourselves. And that's where a lot of shame comes. A healthy shame. A healthy sorrow. Or gratitude. And the taste of freedom. The taste of humility. And but this healthy shame is partly what we need to have as we grow in knowing who we are. And all of our, as Teresa would say, strengths and humilities. Because we have to see them both. We have to be proud of it. Yeah, say, I didn't do all this, She said, that's false humility. We should be grateful and proud of our particular skills and accomplishments. But we always should end it with thanking the Lord, because He's the source of these skills and gifts and so on. So one has to be grateful for one's strengths and one's capabilities, as well as to acknowledge, of course, our limitations, our weaknesses, our faults, our emptiness. Because God's going to empty us, whether we like it or not. And the thing about self-knowledge is that you'll be able to read emptiness as it's meant to be read. It won't be a false read. By that I mean, you may think it's like being the emptying of yourself will be this, I'm just losing interest in life, and I'm just getting listless. I don't care anymore. I'm just getting empty. The emptiness, the joy of living. And that's the false read. When it really is, if we really are knowing ourselves, we're going to experience this emptiness. And it's the what God is emptying us of, so that He can fill us more with Himself. That's all part of the self-knowledge experience. If you want to be filled with God completely, to be totally aware of Him, we have to be empty. The kenosis, like Christ. So this is it. God's going to reveal ourselves to ourselves, and secondly, He's going to reveal something of Himself to us. He's not going to hold back. St. Teresa says, God is not stingy. God has more stuff than He knows what to do with. I like this. God isn't stingy. He wants to give. He wants to give and give and give. And sometimes either we don't know how to ask, or we're too proud to ask. But God's going to reveal something about Himself to us. He wants us to know. And so, the self-knowledge is meant for our deepening of prayer, our practice of prayer, our deepening of prayer, and to allow the love of Christ to really transform us, so that we can love the Trinity as a whole. And the power of the Trinity working within us. That's what we're to know. The power of God. So by means of prayer, God reveals to us our nature, our characteristics, our strengths and weaknesses, all which we should embrace with open-mindedness, open heart, and with humility. The result of that will be a greater intimacy with God, a greater freedom with God, to speak to God in a very intimate, very personal way. And to know His secrets. So, I think, it's Teresa. I think it was either St. Teresa or someone else where I came across the term, instead of self-knowledge, it was self-acquaintance. Oh, how do you do? Glad to meet you. Hello, Jerome. Oh, glad to meet you, Jerome. Yes, how do you do? Self-acquaintance. I like that more than self-knowledge. I can talk to myself more openly. Honestly. It's not this other one saying, I know who you are, and you're not going to escape me. But if it's self-acquaintance, it's going to be more of this sitting down, having a glass of wine with each other. Hey, you know what I liked about you? You know what I really find aggravating and annoying about you? You know, this is it. I like this term, self-acquaintance. Remember I said, different terms for the same thing? Well, personally now I try to use self-acquaintance. I have to grow in self-acquaintance. And it works. And again, it's not just likes or dislikes. It's where am I as a damaged image? What's making me damaged in that image and in that likeness that I have of being made by God? What are the things that I have damaged about myself? Is it my integrity? Is it my physical being? Is it my intellect? Am I allowing lies? Am I allowing different attitudes to hold and determine how I see people, how I estimate and judge situations, how I hold on to certain values that are no longer applicable or viable or fruitful? What is it about myself that I have the strengths and the weaknesses? What makes me hesitate? What makes me read a situation to avoid the shame that I should be experiencing, to cover up the guilt? What is it about one that allows oneself to do all this? This is where the real self-knowledge is. Father Stephen, again, it's not a matter of likes or dislikes. I don't like beets. So what does Father Stephen cook? Beets. This was in Dallas at Mount Carmel Center, and Mary, our wonderful secretary, is there, and so she teams up with Father Stephen to get at me because they know what I don't like. And when he serves broccoli, I don't like the stem of stuff. I know. See, I know, but I don't like it. So I cut off the stems, you see. And they're sitting there looking at me. He's not eating the stems. I know, Father Steve. Let's look at him anyway. It's not that. It's more, the more important thing is, do I know myself well enough? Am I going to hold on to that teasing or not? Which some people it's going to affect them. I may have to let go of that. And just be able to laugh at oneself. And they have the confidence to say, I don't like STEM. Live with it. See? So, what's the point of this? Oh, well, it's the inner workings of who we are, the way that we evaluate, the way that we determine how we're going to look at things, and the prejudices we have, and the habits we have of, say, turning prejudice into self-justification. Human beings are terrible at self-justifying their actions and their thoughts, because again, they don't want to admit they may be wrong, they may be guilty, they may be in error. I really messed up one day in a homily, and it was a real good lesson. I'm glad it happened. I misread, I can't remember what it was. It was something about the temple. Solomon and David and Solomon in the temple. And I was given this homily. It was just to a few other priests. It wasn't at mass, parish mass. Right? But I'm talking about the temple. And I said something which I misunderstood from my preparation. And after mass, one of the priests came to me and said, "Can I speak to you about your homily?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So we sat down and he said, "You were totally wrong. You were totally in error. And thanks be to God, you didn't give this homily to parish people or et cetera, et cetera." And I was just, I could feel my anger just getting like a volcano. Hold on, don't do anything yet. And he said, and thankfully you weren't speaking to the Jewish people, who, for them, the temple is everything. And for a moment I tried to defend myself. And I said, this really isn't going good. So he ended up leaving. I said, what could have happened? So I said, well, go back to the source and try to get this straight. So I go back to what I was reading, and I'm reading about the temple, and the basic thing was, I had thought that God was going to punish Solomon for building the temple, and which was the error. No, that is wrong. And you know what the problem was? I jumped over a comma in the sentence. So leaving the comma out, it read this way. But with the comma in there, it clarified the point being made about Solomon in the temple. And I completely misread it. But the point of this is that when this priest came in to correct me, again, my initial response was, how dare he? And then when he left and I found out, corrected the whole thing, I went to him and said, I misread. And I said, thank you for doing that. I do tell people, if I do say something in error, let me know. Don't let me walk around the earth in error. But anyways, I realized at myself that I saw myself getting angry, trying to get out of it, push away the guilt, push away the anger. It was more than anger, because in a way I don't like this priest. And for the one who I don't like to come and correct me, you know what that feeling is. There I said, thank you, Lord, that happened. Thank you, Lord, that happened, because I knew then something about myself, that I have changed. And I'm very cautious now that if I am being corrected, I don't have to get angry about it. I can listen. I can be at peace about it and discuss it, instead of putting up this wall and ready to defend myself against even my own guiltiness, and to put up that wall to give me time to figure out how to get revenge. So that's how you are, Jerome. There's a streak in you that's how you are. And I thank the Lord that I saw it. I was able to leave it now. I came to really self-knowledge. It was painful, very painful. But I'm glad it happened, because now I'm freer. I've grown in a certain peace, how to handle a situation, if it ever happens again. this is all what Teresa is indicating, that in self-knowledge, there's going to be this veil of darkness, that we have to be courageous in breaking through, to tear away the veil, so that the light of Christ the light of the Holy Spirit can shine on us for our own, again, back to freedom and a peace in knowing who one is in one's own ways and in one's dispositions in order to undergo conversion. So self-knowledge is really meant for conversion of heart and peace of mind. St. Teresa would say in her life, chapter 38, number 16, "It is a shame and unfortunate that through our own fault we don't understand ourselves or know who we are, but limit ourselves to considering only our bodies." She's saying many times we'll want to know so much about our bodies. That's why we spend so much time in front of mirrors. And so being so worried about how other people are seeing us, if they're looking at us in the first place, or what they may be saying about us, when they may not be saying anything at all. I hear many times people confess, "Oh, Father, I'm caught in selfishness, self-centeredness, by worrying about what other people are saying about me, or how they are seeing me." And I said, "How do you know they're even speaking about you?" I said, I don't know, Father. I don't even know. It's my imagination. "How do you even know that they're looking at you?" I said, "I don't know, Father." See, there's this thing that we're so self-centered that we even imagine that other people are doing things to us when they may not even be doing this. But that's part of our self-knowledge. That's how we can be to ourselves. We have to acknowledge it. And that's what St. Teresa is saying. Why are we looking more at our spiritual self and training our body to be spiritual, to move us, just as the senses serve the spirit? Why is not the body serving our spiritual life, our spirit? Instead of maturing spiritually, we remain grounded in created things. And so we end up abusing the freedom that God gives us to cultivate this image and likeness and this presence about ourselves. And sometimes shy away from being purified by not looking at ourselves for who we truly are. She is challenging us to have no self-illusions. Part of my background is film, movie making, television work. So I'm always seeing I'm in my own movie. I'm the star of my own epic. You see, and so a lot of times, again, and it's something I've come to know about myself, that I like to do this. I like to see myself as the hero of the movie. And I'm real handsome. I'm so the center of everything, that when I was involved in this kind of work, because it really has an effect on me, I really began to believe it. And I caught myself one day realizing this. And again, it was a point of self-knowledge. And I said, You're not even in a B movie. You've been banded from the studio. Whatever it was to make me laugh at myself and say, you got to get out of this kind of attitude and this disposition. But again, I'm just giving you things of my own self now to see this is the kind of stuff that we've got to look at ourselves and change. Of course, it has to be humility. And as we examine ourselves each night, if we're using the examination of conscience, to replay the movie about ourselves during the day, and to say, when did I act virtuously? How did I respond to an opportunity that God was giving me to be grace, or to sacrifice, or to do something, come out of myself? Or did I, in reviewing my day, to look at and say, you avoided that in thought, word, and deed. You ignored that chance. You turned away from that grace. To be able just to accept it and say, okay, Lord, give me the virtue that will help me to overcome this aspect of my personality, or the way that I live and move and have my being. To push away a certain disordinate, inordinate appetite, or attitude, or gesture, or way of responding. Teresa says there in the interior castle, first mansion, let us think of God's greatness and come back to our own baseness, to see ourselves as lowly. Not lowly meaning ugly or sinister or vicious, but just as a creature. I don't have what God has. I'm not as God is. By looking at His purity, we should be able to see our own foulness. By meditating upon His humility, we shall see how far we are from being humble. One is determined to see ourselves as we are in all our aspects of life. She says there in The Way of Perfection, chapter 12, number 1, everything may seem to be a heavy burden then, and rightly so when we examine ourselves, because it involves a war against ourselves. But once we begin to work on ourselves, God does so much in the soul and grants it so many favors that all that one can do in this life seems little. This is when we really start to die to ourselves. Even when we start to examine this war against ourselves, she's basically saying God is so good and so caring and protective that He will even keep some things about ourselves from us, and maybe even erase them, so that we won't be so damaged and so hurt in seeing ourselves that we'll just simply see the favors that God bestows upon us. That's astounding. That's astounding knowledge of how God is and how God works. Once we begin, we've got to start it. Once we begin to look at ourselves truthfully and begin to see not just the strengths and the qualities that we have, but really begin to see who we are. Especially when we take God for granted. God forbid. He's going to even protect us from seeing the real horrors about ourselves, so that we may not even know about it. He'll almost like shield us from looking at ourselves and saying, just take a look at my mercy instead. You understand what she's saying? This is astounding. This is really insightful knowledge of how God is, how He does things, and the way He protects us. Because if we really did see ourselves for who we are, we'd probably just blow up. Don't put me back together. I don't want to be that person. But God is so good and so healing that he's the one who may cause a little bit of an illusion that we look at and say, yeah, that's where I'm poor, that's where I'm bad, that's where I'm neglectful, whatever it is. But it won't be the full view of ourselves. He'll put some Windex on us. We're just kind of seeing ourselves for half the view of it in order to protect us. I can't get over this. I'm just amazed at this. What she's teaching us about how to grow in self-knowledge, that even God will protect us from ourselves. But we're the ones who have to come to it and start it. Looking at ourselves, at the burden that we cause God. If we're really growing in self-knowledge, he says, we're going to want to desire, one of the deepest desires we have, as we grow in self-knowledge, is to imitate Christ more and more. It's not to be the hero of one's own movie. It's not to be like another person, the idol. And this is where the young people are really being damaged. Very much, because who do they hold up as models? Sports figures who live immoral lives. People who are perhaps wealthy and they want to fashion their life on this wealthy person, or this famed scientist, or this glamorous movie star. Our youth are just being trashed by these false images, these so-called idols. We've got to really help them to see, look at their life. They're living immoral lives. You want to be like them? Having worked with the young people in 2 different schools now, I bring this up to them all the time. Don't grow in a knowledge of self according to them, according to their style. It'll just lead you down the sinful road, the evil road, the road of horror. But as she says, as we grow more and more in this self-knowledge and seeing ourselves as God sees us, the more we're going to want to imitate Christ alone more and more. The one who is meek and humble. Set our eyes on Christ, our good, and on his saints. There we shall learn true humility. The intellect will be enhanced, and self-knowledge will not make one base or cowardly. The Interior Castle, First Mansion, Chapter 2. That's why the memory, to go back to the memory and self-knowledge work together. Because in memory, we should be seeing ourselves for who we are. And then allowing the grace of God to say, see how you were then? This is how I want you to be now. I'm going to give you another chance to be saintly. Or to be however holy you want to be. An image of yourself as a holy person. This is good. Do you ever see yourself way down the road? Boy, there's St. Jerome. Hey, wait. Really? Do you have an image of what you want to look like as a saint? Well, then work for it. It's a little technique that St. Teresa gives us. And that I have used often at times too. I've turned the hero of the movie into this life of a saint. So, and then she says, not only will we want to imitate Christ more and more, but our freedom in prayer, in our speaking, in our listening to God, our just conversations with the Lord. Prayer is a conversation with the one whom we love. Our conversation with God will become so friendly and so at ease, we'll startle ourselves of how we're talking to the Lord. It'll be so spontaneous and so open that it's almost like you're just having fun with the Lord and He's having fun with you, that you're talking, but it's prayer. And it's not this matter of a distance and it's kind of like false, I got to be so humble, I can't look at the Lord and I got to just be so bent over in my sorrow and my shame, when the Lord is saying, get up and talk to me. Have a good conversation with me. That's why I joke with the Lord. I'm learning from St. Teresa. See how intimate she is talking to the Lord? You ever read her and realize, how can she say that? She's talking to the Lord as if she's talking to her neighbor. or she's talking to the Lord as if she's kind of like chewing the Lord out as she's chewing out a sister. I just am amazed at how she talks with the Lord. I said, well, that's the way a saint talks to the Lord. That's how I want to be. So on my travels in the car, I'm talking to the Lord, who's sitting next to me. And we have these conversations. And sometimes I'll say, I don't want to talk. I just want silence right now. He'll go, okay. He'll do the same, Lord, I really remember that time when you really helped me. I don't want to talk to you right now. I just want to look at the countryside. Okay, Lord. That's how the Lord wants to talk to Him. Very intimate, very personal, very open. This is what happens in self-now. One delights then in the good, in the wonders of the Lord. I'm always telling the Lord, man, you caught me again. Doggone it. You go, yeah, I got you, didn't I? It's just the wonders of the Lord. You'll be more and more, as I mentioned this morning, really sensitive to the invisible. You'll be seeing what's behind the screen in the movie of life. And this is what He wants. He wants us in this New Testament era to really touch the invisible. He really wants us to touch the mystical phenomena, the electric quality about life, and get out of our Old Testament standards and our Old Testament view of things, especially get out of our Old Testament fear. So self-knowledge is not understood as an exercise in self-analysis or self-introspection, but as a true act of reflectiveness, reflecting back God to ourselves, so that we can see ourselves as God sees us, and to experience the work of the Lord actively going on this very moment. This path of self-knowledge, she says, must never then be abandoned. Nor is there on this journey a soul so much a giant that it has no need to return often to the stage of an infant. This should never be forgotten. That's from her life, chapter 13, number 15. This path of self-knowledge must never be abandoned. And as she would say there, never to think that I have become so much of a giant for the Lord that I don't have to go back to being like an infant, like a child. To look at myself. What she's saying is to look at myself and being honest with who I am. Just because I may have arrived in holiness, It doesn't mean that I don't have to look back anymore at what I have done against the Lord, what my faults still may be, what I may still be doing to avoid the Lord or to abuse His graces. I must always be going back to self-knowledge. Because then I begin to find the noble character of who I truly am for the Lord. And this is the work of the Trinity, whom we will celebrate and honor, adore, beginning with tonight's Vespers. This nobility of us being restored to the very image and likeness of God. So exercise this virtue of self-knowledge. Go back to those chapters early on in the interior castle. Ingrain them in your prayer. Say, Lord, show me truly who I am in your eyes. And show me truly something about yourself so I may fall in love with you. And to imitate your Son and be that spirit of love which binds everything together. To see my life as a unity. To see my life as one experience of you and me together. Existing for your glory. Now and forever. God bless you. Father, and Holy Spirit.
Something I saw a few years ago to movie, Daisy Wine and Roses. And one day the guy was a husband and wife of alcoholics.
Yes.
And one day he saw himself in the window, and he told her, "I don't like that phone I saw." So he tried to turn his life around, but unfortunately, she couldn't do it. It was hard for her.
Yeah.
But he came to grips with his alcoholism.
That's why, it's very good. I'm glad you brought that up, yeah. She saw him in her. She saw herself in him. She saw herself in him. Many times we can grow in self-knowledge by looking at another person. And this is the thing about someone who may aggravate us, because that's the kind of person who at times we're like. And why we want, and why the person we really love and we really enjoy being with, they're almost like the person that's the character we would look at, that we want to be like. That's our own self desiring that. Whereas the person who angers us, who makes us impatient, they're the ones who we really are like. They're almost a reflection of ourselves. This is a paradox.
It's scary.
That is scary. And that's why it's hurtful. That's why it's painful.
That don't want to be like her.
Yeah. That's why. And so we use both to grow in self-knowledge. If that person, if that one person represents or shows what I would really like to be that way, know that that's the desire of the self to be like that person, to grow in that kind of virtue, okay? Because that's a recognition that I don't have that. Because you want to be like, as Teresa would say, you want to be like the one loves. Love produces love. Like seeks out like. So if you see someone who you really are just so enamored, you want to be like that person because you recognize, I don't have that, but I want it. And that's what I want to be like. And on the other, so you're growing in self-knowledge of what you want. That's all right. Now on the other hand, the person that you don't like, or the one person who you find annoying, or the one person who you can never get along with, they are the ones who are actually a reflection of you. Why? Because you see in that person what you don't like in yourself. Okay, that person reminds you of yourself. Remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, strangely, you may not know it, but you're attracted to that person. But there's something there,
Yeah.
you know, even though you don't want to see it in
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you are drawn.
Yes. And that'll challenge yourself to say, I don't want to be that way.
That's the type.
That's where you really grow in self now. I don't want to be that way. And then, you know, why am I so caught up in this person who I don't like? Why do I think about this person all the time? Why does this person aggravate me every moment of the day, whether he or she is in front of me or not even close to me? Why am I so consumed? Why am I absorbed into this person? Because you're dealing with yourself. Remember what I said? Hell is having to live with yourself. It's a hell. You're going through hell. In this life. God is gracious because I applied this to myself. And the Lord spoke to me and said, why do you allow this person to rule your life? And I said, Lord, thank you for speaking to me and enlightening me. The Lord was getting tired of me being aggravated. I think. So he finally said, why do you allow this person to control your interior life? And maybe even your gestures. I said, you're right, Lord. Why? Yes, there's things about that person that you see yourself and you don't like it. So then change. But the Lord told me, he said, ignore the person completely. Just ignore the person's idiosyncrasies. Ignore the person and this person's actions and gestures. Ignore this person in the person's attitudes and opinions about things, because they're just opposite. You know, I'm more conservative. This person is so extremely liberal. And I was thinking, how can a Catholic be that way? You know, I mean, it gets into some really anti-Catholic stuff, and he's a Catholic and a priest. You see? But the Lord was saying, why do you allow yourself to be this way? Look at yourself. And it was another growth in self-knowledge. I said, you're right, Lord. I don't have peace. I'm not why am I not cultivating this peace? He said, just ignore this person. Free yourself. And it worked. Since that day, when the Lord said, just be at peace, ignore the person, I've been so much at peace, I can handle it. I can be around this person doesn't affect me. In fact, the aggravations are like, ding, ding. Yeah, that person that way. Man, what a pathetic person. The Lord says, oh, don't say that. Yeah, I know. So pray for the person. I pray for this person. The Lord really brought peace into my life. Because he got so tired of me being aggravated. You see, it was a real growth, because it was this reflection. I know the other people who I said, that's what I want to be like. See? Yes.
So the acknowledgement was that he was just as passionate what he believes as well as you feel as your passion and belief. That what were you similar to him? What did you see that reflect yourself?
That there is about this person something so self-centered that he wants to be the center of attention, and he wants to dictate, and he wants to control, and he wants to overpower you and the situation. And the way he does this is just, would just, just aggravated me so much that I would lose interior control over myself. And I began to see that a little bit of that was my old self coming back to me, and I didn't want it. I'm not going back there, and I don't want to be reminded of it. Yet I got to live with this person, you see, and again, it was just so opposite that the opposite view is so against my values and what I see as Catholic truth, that here was a person who contested that. And that was where the Lord was showing me that I'm not a person who can just let things go and be at peace. The Lord is really healing me. You understand? Is this clear now? Am I answering your question?
Yeah.
And the point was, the Lord wanted me to be at peace. You see, a peace that I have attained, but here was another challenge to it, something even deeper that I didn't even think was there. The Lord, I'm convinced, is a coal miner. Jesus was a carpenter. God the Father, I'm pretty sure he was a coal miner, because he just goes down deep and just digs it out, and puts it on the train cart and shoves it on the track up to the surface, and and you gotta accept it. So God's down there in the core of the earth, mining your heart away. He works in darkness, so he's a coal miner. But he's going to just dig out what's in you so deep that you may not even think it's there. But but as I said, he'll protect you enough so that you don't become completely shattered. But he'll make you see yourself for who you are. And what he'll want you to see is what the opposite of to be. He doesn't want to just say, look, stop being aggravated. No, his purpose is get rid of the aggravation. Here's the emptying. He'll replace it with peace. The reminder that I can ignore this person's liberal views on things, his behaviors, his idiosyncrasies, a little bit of a reminder of me, my old self, and being and this it just occurred to me, the hypocrisy is what just eats me, that was eating me away. And I could look back and say, you were a hypocrite one time in your life, Jerome. Confess up to it. And I have. But when I see it in this person, again, it's a reminder. And that's what just reminds me. It just makes me. See, it was a reflection of me in the hypocrisy. That was it. That's really what it was, or is. And the Lord said, you've gotten over all that. All right? Just ignore it. When this person is just, blabbering on about social and values and issues that we're facing, and embracing them and speaking positively about them, you know what they are, and the Lord just said, just look out the window at the breeze, just shut them off, and it works. I'm at peace. And now it's turned into a compassion. I pray for this person because the person is just so, it's sad. Anyways, okay? I'm free. I'm at peace. But I'm now called to have a greater compassion and prayer for this person. So, but it's all self-knowledge. Self-knowledge can get real gritty. really gotta, you gotta really get in there and do your work. But once you start doing the work, as Teresa says, and this is true, this was really true when I came across this phrase, He'll start doing the work for you. Because He knows we can't handle it well. And we're not good workers. We tire easily. I'm glad now to give a lot over to the Lord. Just give Him, you just turn it over to you. And He really does. He really takes care of things.
Father, He's saying He is the supreme finisher of whatever He does. He has to take that action and finish it.
The finisher, because He's the one who polishes. You ever, when you do deal work with wood or stone, I'm just beginning to fulfill a desire of mine, be a stone carver. But in the finishing of it, polish, sand, you make the wood real beautiful, and the stone real beautiful. That's what God does. He's the finisher in this way. He's the one who polishes up you, gets you ready for the big moment. Whenever that comes. So yeah, you're right. All right.